It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning.
Hello.
Hi. We had played Mike Johnson before and talked about the Trump wanting just one reconciliation bill and not two. Mm-hmm. And Lindsey Graham is talking about two. And it was interesting, just on social media, a number of posts out there saying, well, that's because Lindsey Graham doesn't want cuts to the Department of Defense. Well, just Trump?
Right. I haven't seen anywhere where that's the case.
I haven't.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that. Now,
right.
Now, when you look at some of the priorities that they've listed, securing the border, money for mass deportations, new energy policy, deregulation, Trump tax cuts 2.0 with no tax on tips, Social Security, and overtime, raise the debt ceiling, and cuts to mandatory spending, excluding Social Security and Medicare. Does that mean they want to get rid of the department? They want to cut spending to the Department of Education in a reconciliation bill? I mean, if you're going to go big on it, I mean, if you want to, if you want to cut and you want to cut certain areas,
okay. Remember with the I almost said capital gains tax, corporate tax rate, the first time around. Trump was somewhere 15, 18%, and we were like, because I thought they'd never get it below 30, but they got it down to 21.
Right.
So do you go so big on everything, right out of the gate, knowing you're going to get, I mean, I think to a certain extent you do. It's the art of the deal. And someone should write a book called The Art of the Deal.
That'd be a good idea.
I think I'm going to write that down.
What a solid idea. Send it to Trump.
I'll send it to Trump. Trump could probably write that.
Yeah.
And so you build it up, you bloat it out with your wish list, and then see what room you can, where you can make that cut. Because think about this. I don't know what no taxes on overtime looks like, right? When he floated the idea no taxes on tips, we said, all right, that one's going to be tricky on how you work that through. But no taxes on overtime. Okay. If you look at the liberal left, the Democrats have been pushing for everything. Look, we want you to get overtime, anything over 32 hours. We want you to get paid overtime. So on something like no taxes for overtime pay, and the Democrats are big on taxes, but they want to promote the populist thing on, companies should pay this and, should pay that, and, sick leave if you've got a hangnail, all of these things. And I just wonder, I mean, I think I know, but do you have any Democrats you can get on board for no taxes for overtime?
I was saying that last hour, where you lose them is in that same bill is corporate tax rate of 15%.
Yeah, in the same bill. Yes.
Yeah, I just don't see them.
Yeah, if you put that in the same bill, well,
you want that. You want that in the reconciliation bill.
Well, sure. I mean, you're going to want you're going to want as much as possible.
Well, that's the problem with having this as a huge bill. That's why it takes so long to do it. I still think, look, they could do no tax on Social Security. I don't see any legal problem with that. The legal problem would be with tips and overtime. And that's because that's income.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what you're saying is people who make the same income but make it in different ways don't pay the same taxes. I see a major lawsuit there.
I think especially no taxes for tips is going to be especially legally tricky. Overtime is going to be tricky, too. The overtime thing, again, these are both big populist ideas that, caught fire for a few minutes during the campaign season. but getting them done. And my wife is a certified payroll specialist. She's somebody who's been doing this for, better part of 40 years now. So she is very close with the American Payroll Association, sitting on the board, and corporations, ADP. She works alongside with them, major payroll company. So she knows these things in terms of what the headache would be, right, in implementing. She doesn't have an opinion on the law. I mean, I'm sure she does. But for her, it's about, okay, what is the law, or what are the changes in the law, and how would you implement that as a group in terms of employers? How do they make that happen? How does the tax system work? All these things that they have to deal with. People don't think about what happens with corporations when the government starts talking about changing this or changing that. They start spending money on that right away. They have to, because if they get something through and everything changes fundamentally, then that's going to have to, all of that is going to have to be changed. And it's big, 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 big adjustments. Then you look at the legal aspects, as we've been talking about, of how you get that done and treat that differently and get away with it legally.
Yeah, I don't know how you treat. It's easy to see Social Security because Social Security before 1982 was not taxed, and
Right.
Social Security is not the same type of income. Tips and overtime are income from the work that you're doing.
Exactly.
And there, you can't really. I guess you could say tips aren't technically income from the employer.
Well, but it's not, but it's still income nonetheless.
I'm
Now,
looking.
now it's
what I'm,
okay.
I understand. I'm just trying. I'm trying to figure out the legal loophole here, and that would be the legal loophole. That's a gift of undetermined of an undetermined amount each transaction that comes from the the good-heartedness of a customer. It does not come directly from your employer, and so
It's not a set amount necessarily in fact, it's not a set amount at all.
Right. Where overtime is without question from your employer, and it is a set amount that you're getting per
right.
hour
Right.
for that overtime. And but I still think, again, tips are income.
And everyone
right.
everyone from that employer, let's just narrow it down to even one employer. Everyone that works for that one employer is under that same overtime rule, whatever it is.
Right. Now, by the way,
or pay.
You're listening to live workshopping this, trying to figure out.
Well, no,
how,
I think you're onto something, because if you look at W-9 income, right? If you look at something else where you have you do a side business and you get paid as a contractor, well, that's different. That's a different type of income. Well, this is even more differenter.
Yeah, but I'm still paying the same tax rate on a tip.
That you are on a tip, but it comes from a different. Each transaction is different, and it's not determined to be the same rate.
But it's still income.
Mm-hmm. At the end of it, that's what the tax is. It's taxing the person that receives it based on the amount they receive.
Right.
Based on the categories, the income tax bracket.
Right. I don't see how there's not a lawsuit, because what you're saying is people that make, and if you're talking about tips, for the most part, you don't have most CEOs making tips.
No, as far as I know.
and so you're talking about more middle to lower income people that are probably making the majority of the tips out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're going to have a huge outcry from people that, for example, if somebody makes $25,000 a year in their job, they've got to pay the full freight on whatever the tax would be. Yet somebody who makes it in tips would not have to if they made much more, and there would be an outcry on that, which...
Here's the conundrum I see. So John makes tips, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this year, he reported that he made $20,000 in tips, and the rest he made in hourly wages.
Okay.
And the law changes, and next year, let's just say 20%, or let's say 30% of his revenue, 40% of his revenue is in tips this year. Next year, 70% of his tips or his revenue is in tips because the law changes in how you report it. I guess my question would be this. For those who are pushing this, I get it. I understand what, the basis of it. But if you walk this through, look, we don't need the IRS getting in all of our business about the tips we make. Well, actually, you're asking for them to get into your business more because you'll have to report how much you made in tips in order to qualify for not being taxed. So the IRS will be involved.
Well, this is going to hurt the postcard.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Ted. Still not going to be on a postcard.
I think what they should focus on is no taxes on Social Security first.
Well, you know how things have a sunset provision, some laws? Like the tax thing for the tax cuts they're trying to extend, or they want to extend for the GOP. Well, I propose on the for a different reason, because I'm a different age, a sunrise provision where it doesn't kick in for, I had a birthday over the weekend, so it'll be 11 years. 11 years from this past weekend, it will kick in. A sunrise provision on taxes. So that's what I propose. That's the Eric Harley amendment.
I believe Social Security should be the one they focus on. It should begin next October 1st and end with my death.
Upon death, the sunset will be more of a funeral.
It's not a sunset.
And just seen an end of life provision.
Just so everybody knows, we're talking purely our own self-interest here because
which is
when we will start collecting Social Security.
Well, hopefully you already know, if you've been listening for any amount of time, even 5 minutes, that this show's all about us. Don't make it about you. It's about us.
But in all seriousness, the Social Security one would have no problem because they already, before 82, there was no taxes on Social Security. It's the overtime and tips because they are income, and I don't know how you don't get a lawsuit on that from everybody else who does not make tips, or if they have a salary job, where they're working 50, 60 hours a week, whatever, because what you're saying is some earned income from employment should not be taxed. There's a 14th Amendment problem there.
Yeah, I would think at some level on both of those there would be.
And nobody's addressed it anywhere. I haven't seen anyone address that anywhere.
Yeah.
So I could be missing something, but I don't know what I'm missing because I've seen no discussion on it anywhere, not in the Wall Street Journal, not in Bloomberg, not in National Review.
Like I said, my wife could tell you what the problems would be in setting that up in a payroll system, but in terms of the 14th Amendment issues, she'd probably be where we are. We there may be some, but, pointing those out.
Well, nobody else that has advocated this has talked about that.
Right.
Unless the whole goal would be, okay, anybody else who makes that limit also doesn't get taxed.
Yeah.
Because you can't do that, though.
I don't see that happening.
I don't see it. Yeah, neither do I.
Well, I know the populist, the entire populist idea of approaching both of these. I don't know how you walk them through without a major legal challenge on each of them, but maybe somebody will point that out.
Well, also, I think then that we should redo our contract next year where you and I get paid hourly, and we collect overtime over 5 hours a week.
Well, and that
on the air overtime,
each paycheck be deemed a tip.
Okay,
tip in quotation.
Our company is tipping us.
Yeah, right.
Well, we need to get something. all I want is what's coming to me. All I want is my fair share from A Peanuts Christmas. Because remember, you and I were the unlucky ones with the last Republican tax cut got a tax increase.
By the way, of course they would have to get into the legal definition of tip when you write the law. But you mentioned CEOs, they don't get tips, but they do get bonuses. Is that bonus no longer a bonus? It's now
it's a tip.
By the board of directors.
Wow.
Just asking questions.
All of a sudden, everybody.
We all go into the tipping phase. Business. It's all overtime. Everything over an hour is overtime.
It's all overtime and all tips.
Exactly.
866-90 Red Eye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
We've heard all about the obesity epidemic in this country with upwards of 60% of people overweight, but it's not just people, it's our pets.
Yes, we're seeing the same trend. 30 to 40% of animals are overweight, and 20% or so are in that obese category.
Dr. Susan Nelson, a veterinarian at Kansas State University, and she says there's definitely a correlation here between more of us being overweight and our pets.
Yeah, my personal belief, yes, there's a big connection. Kind of just like us, there's a lot of palatable foods out there, and fat usually makes them more palatable, and so we like to eat them. Less exercise. We just have less time for exercise, so the dogs don't get to go out for the walks as often with their owners, and so they're laying around the house watching TV while the owners are too, and usually snacking.
And our pets gradually become too fat, which Dr. Nelson says can bring on all kinds of problems and cut the lifespan of our pets. She says get your pet into the vet's office regularly. They'll help you with tips on diet and exercise for your pet, of course. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Washington.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Well, look, I got to tell you, I mean, I'm not up on pop culture as much as I used to be, but I still pay a lot of attention to good music.
Yeah.
Not the crap these young kids are listening to today, but I just took a look at the Golden Globe list.
Oh, yeah.
I've only heard of Wicked when it comes to movies, right?
Yeah, it's a movie. It's a musical.
And I don't even know how I saw it, like the first introduction to the first episode of Matlock with Kathy Bates. I watched the first 5 minutes of it.
I only saw articles regarding that. I haven't seen one clip of it.
Well, I told you, I've always loved it. Remember when the vice president, there was a vice president show on or something. It was called Madam Vice President. It was supposed to be for like Hillary or whatever.
Yeah.
And I said, I forgot who was playing it. And I said, yeah. You want...
Was it Glenn Close? It wasn't. Was it Glenn Close?
No. I forgot who it was. I said, nope. You know who would be credible as a female president? I said, Kathy Bates.
Yeah.
She would be. I just love her and so I watched. It was actually pretty good, but I'd never watched it. It's on Netflix or something, or one of them that I don't have.
Okay.
I went through like 50 of the TV shows and movies, except for those two. I don't know any of them.
Mm-hmm.
Am I that out of touch? Or is it?
I don't watch any of them. I mean,
is it that splintered?
I see. Yeah, I think it's that. I think it's all over the place now because many of us now have cut the cable.
Yeah.
So these are, from everywhere, all the streamers and everything. Yeah.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Rhode Island Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I was just wondering because when we were talking about what people watch, and the Golden Globes was on, and when the Golden Globes was on, I laughed because I mean the last time I watched any type of award show was mid '90s, and it was the year that was it the year of Fargo?
Fargo,
don't Jerry Maguire,
okay,
and the one with Ed Norton when he was the
Primal Fear.
Primal Fear.
Yeah.
That was the last time I paid attention to the movie stuff.
Okay.
So no,
and
so
Golden
no,
Globes kind of covers TV, movies, and all of it.
And so when I went to the Drudge Report, Drudge must have nothing to do with it anymore because it wasn't the top headline.
Yeah,
the Hollywood Awards.
Right. It would be the headline for days if Drudge were actually doing it.
But I just thought it's interesting. I got a call from a buddy of mine the other day saying, "Are you watching this bowl game?" I said, "I don't. I cut the cord a long time ago, over 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So I don't have satellite or cable. Or you got to be kidding me. No. What do you watch? I pay whatever the amount is, $11, $12 a month, not to have commercials on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I really, this is just me. And again, it's somebody who has gone through Hollywood for over 60 years.
A very long time.
A very long time.
A very long, none of your business time.
Well, no, I'm sorry, but I'm finding because of the technology where people can put together their own stuff and edit their own video and make it as professional, even more professional than some of the quality of independent movies that I've seen.
Yeah.
In beautiful high definition, I think there ought to be a YouTube award.
No, actually,
Are there? Is there a YouTube award?
Who was it? It was the CEO of the Emmys mentioned it last year in an article, in an interview. Someone was interviewing him, and he suggested that content creators from YouTube should be included in the Emmy nomination process. Now, the thing is, the number of entries would be
I know
a gazillion. You do the Emmys once every 20 years. There are some that I look at it and I go, because you and I aren't big awards guys, but if you're going to keep doing the awards, then to me those are more award worthy. Some of the content is more award worthy than some of the crap that actually gets awards. I mean, again, I don't care about the awards, but if you're going to do them, then that would apply there. And so when he mentioned that, there were a couple of YouTubers that I follow that I thought, seriously, there's this quality content where the work is put in, not just in making, it's a lot of them make it about themselves, but there's a lot of tutorial stuff that I love, I think is great. But there's some other stuff that is, and there's a guy that does, his channel's called The Malibu Artist. And he does these drones that fly over the Malibu coast and look for and find great white sharks, right? Well, that's an instant draw to people on social media, right? But this guy is an actual photographer who's worked in television before. He is a drone pilot, very experienced drone pilot. But they've learned, some other marine biologists have come on with him to do interviews, and they're actually learning, the marine biology community is learning from things that he has found on migration and everything else. So if it applies to like documentary style TV on those, then in that category, in my opinion, then those guys that are working very hard to do that and are usually a one or two man or woman band and they get incredible B-roll footage.
Yeah.
It's just It's amazing to watch.
I was watching just last week, just because it's starting to get cold out, a bunch of Alaska documentaries put together by just regular people.
Yeah.
Here's this glacier, and we walked on the glacier.
Right.
I find that I love it. The people that build. I'm going to build my own tiny home in Alaska on my 15 acres. Here I am, and they build it over a period of time, and then they do videos of them just going out on the weekend and staying in their house. And I'm like, and I'm watching this going, why?
Well, it's
you don't got a TV, but I'm watching it.
Yeah.
And then the ultimate one, the guy who would win the award for me from last year was the guy in Nebraska. I don't even know what his name is. The guy who built the pond in his backyard.
No, the
guy that built a
that
huge
whole series. Yeah.
Wasn't that great? And it was a series.
And it was,
and he went
and
through,
you were, it's weird to say riveting, but you were like, what's next? What's he going to do next? Because you're thinking about this, and I'm thinking about this huge project. Like me, I replaced the water tank on my fridge. To me, that was a 10-year deal. For him, okay, over the next month, I'm going to create a lake in my backyard. well, then Colin Furze, who's in England, in the UK, this guy has built this metal tunnel. He started by digging through the floor of his shed with a shovel, carrying dirt out in buckets. We're now 4 years into it, and he's got a secret garage in the front now that's going to elevate his DeLorean car. He bought a DeLorean car for this. It's going to elevate it and come up, and then he had to get all the permits and everything locally, just like we do in the States, and come up in his driveway. This guy has been, and he's a great engineering mind, but you're looking at this, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't even know where to start. You mentioned documentaries. Drumeo, Drumeo. They do this. It's all about drums. They bring on all these drummers, and they'll have everybody, all these celebrities. And then they'll do their own tutorials, the guys from Drumeo, on, hey, here's how you learn to play like this drummer or whatever. We're going to play this song, teach you this song by this. They did, along with Phil Collins' son, a documentary on Phil Collins. And then they had all these drummers talking about, look, if you're going through prog, you can't, one of the great prog drummers of all time, along with his pop stuff, one of the great drummers of all time, Phil Collins.
Oh my gosh, he's the one that responsible for all the early Genesis drumming, and then when Gabriel left, I mean, I've got a Steve Hackett album. I love playing, and this is so eclectic. I mean, it's so prog rock, and it's Phil Collins, and I play it for people. Go, who's this sound like?
Yeah.
It sort of sounds like Phil Collins. It is. No way, Phil Collins did that.
Well,
they're used to "Can't Hurry Love" or the pop stuff from Genesis.
The best drum fill of all time, "In the Air Tonight."
Yeah,
it's do 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 do, and there's a song. It was a duet by Phil Collins and Phil Bailey. Philip Bailey is Earth, Wind, and Fire. They did Easy Lover. That drumming on that song is a beast.
Yeah.
Sue Studio, which for all of us DJs back at the time when it was a hit, it was like, oh, here we go again. And it was played every, 2.25 hours, is a beast on the drums. It is, I am convinced the only reason he wrote the song is so he could play the drums to it. And it's an incredible documentary on what it was like to set up his equipment, the equipment that he used, why he used it, his philosophy to drumming. And also, you mentioned, it sounds like, someone said to you, that sounds like Phil Collins, but it can't be. He has a signature sound as a drummer. And, of course, now, with his illness, he really can't play much. He's got horrific back problems, and he really can't play. But the Drumeo documentary on him, I mean, it's riveting.
I mean,
it's just great.
Some of the stuff on YouTube, and I find that as I get older, that the stuff that individuals do is more intriguing to me than what Hollywood could ever produce.
Exactly.
It really,
Exactly.
not that Hollywood can't produce great stuff, because
Right.
Hollywood still has the potential to do, and occasionally they do. Top Gun.
Yeah.
But I mean, but they can produce great movies. They don't produce them, I don't believe, to the level that they did, the number and level that they did even 30 years ago.
Right.
Because 30 years ago, I was watching movies constantly, and finally I got to the point where I went, I think I've watched all my movies. I don't think there's any left. You ever watch The Proper People?
No.
The two guys that go into abandoned places.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like it's like, oh, where are they going today? Or it's like, I'll see it. It's like, you read the description. It's like, today we go into a closed nuclear plant.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez, I gotta be it. I've got to look at that one. But I find it like the guy with the pond, the guy who built the pond in his backyard, when it was like, oh, he's got a new episode. Oh, he filled the pond today? How did he
Right.
fill the pond?
Right.
That has as much or more excitement than I got to watch the next Reacher.
Yeah. Well, I have a friend who actually built a lake on his property. And back in 2015, we got a ton of water, and so Mother Nature filled it up in a matter of weeks. And it's probably about 7 or 8 times the size of the pond on that YouTube channel. But I know what my friend went through, and it was years and years and years, and it wasn't a YouTube project. But I know what he went through, and he happened to luck out during a very rainy year. It filled in his lake for him. And I think of that guy on YouTube, and you watch everything, but it's beautiful the way that this pond is. If you look at it, it's beautiful. But Hollywood has gotten into this whole thing of, they don't want to connect with people anymore. They only want to make a statement. Well, meanwhile, you know how Elon Musk said, "You are the media." Well,
no,
now,
you're right.
On YouTube, you are the
yes.
Hollywood.
Yeah. The best, I'll say it over and over again, the best money I've ever spent on television entertainment is not to have the commercials on YouTube.
Right. Exactly.
And I didn't do it. I never thought about it. It just as I'm clicking through, it's like, I'm on another YouTube program.
Right.
Another YouTube program.
Right.
I'm not watching TV.
Right.
What's on YouTube? What is this guy doing? What is she doing over here?
Yep.
What?
Yep.
What does she make? She makes something. This is really, she's made a business doing this.
Right.
I find it incredibly fascinating, and 99%, I'll even say more, 100% of what I watch, there is no agenda. It's simply, I'm a human being, and here's what I'm doing today.
Right.
Well, that's what, and most of them are doing things I will never do.
Right.
I find it fascinating. I know I'm not going to do it myself. I want to see other people doing it.
Right.
Whether it's climbing. Oh, the one I saw, the guys that the guys that restore lighthouses.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's just unbelievable. I love that. There's like 3 or 4 of them doing it, or the people, the adventurers that. Okay, we're going to stay at the weirdest hotels. This hotel is on a cliff. This one is in the middle of the ocean. It's like whatever they call them, eclectic hotels or
right.
niche hotels.
Right.
And it's fascinating to watch people go through their life unfiltered. Well, it is filtered because they edit it.
Right.
But it's as close to getting unfiltered. It's not going through I'll be honest, the liberal Hollywood machine.
That's it. Exactly.
And if they want to throw in their own bias, I know it's their own bias.
You know
that
where
I
it's
can-
coming from. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I know that if somebody isn't going, okay, you didn't cover this angle.
Right. Yeah.
Like, no, I covered the angles I wanted to cover.
Right.
And then you sit there and go, what kind of idiots watch this except me? And you look and go, oh, they got 1 million views.
Exactly. Exactly.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. The one thing I did give up watching, though, I still watch the people in the tiny homes on YouTube, but I gave up on the van life people because
I think the van life people gave up on the
yeah,
van life
they're getting all depressed and
yeah.
and whiny and stuff. It's like, well, this is hard.
Well, there was one guy that was living in the back of, he had a camper shell on his pickup truck. And then he started to divulge, well, I have a bunch of rental properties, and he's got a bunch of investments, right? So I thought he made it pretty clear. When he goes to certain areas, he has actual apartments in those areas that he subleases, but he can stay for a couple nights in his apartment.
That's cheating.
And he said he's not living on, but he never said he was living on the road. He said, I just go out and live for a couple of days. I spend a weekend in my truck. That's not a big deal.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.